Hey guys, welcome back to MYP Unit Planners. Today we're going to talk about concepts and context for our MYP Unit Planners. How to choose them, all that process. It's going to be awesome. Alright, so at the top of our unit planners, our very first task is going to be choosing a key concept, a couple of related concepts, and a global context. So a lot of these guides that are published by the IB are very long and sometimes a little bit arduous to figure out. So I made a couple of concept guides for you guys in our Canvas course to make this as easy as possible. So let's take a look at where we can find them. All right, so if we start out in our regular MYP at HHS Canvas group, we've got Unit Planning Part 1 Inquiry. We're still in this section. So we finished our planner header, and now we're going to go on to concepts and context. So we're going to choose one key concept, a couple of related concepts, and a global context. Now, all of this stuff that you're going to see here today is taken from your subject guide. So if you're kind of a paper person, you like your subject guide, that's fine. But if you're like, Shay, just tell me what I need to know, I put the concept guides in here for you guys. So you'll just click on your subject group and you'll be able to take a look at those. Okay, so for my practice one, I am doing sciences. So let's get my unit planner open. So I'm going to go into sciences, do my practice one. Biology, because I did that for a long time. Practice unit planner. All right, so I've got my unit planner up, got my guidebook up, and so now I'm going to choose Sciences Concept Guide. All right, you can download it, you can save it, you can do whatever you want in here. All right, so all of the subject guides are going to have this whole section called Teaching and Learning Through Inquiry. And using this, we're going to develop our conceptual understanding, we're going to do our statement of inquiry, we're going to do our inquiry questions and our approaches to learning, all that kind of stuff. All right, so in order to make our conceptual understanding or statement of inquiry, we've got to choose some concepts. So our key concepts are going to be these big ideas. And each subject group has their own kind of specific ones, but you can honestly choose any of the key concepts from the list of 16. In science, we have change, relationships, and systems. So if I go down, here are the 16 key concepts for the whole MYP. You can choose any of these, but then the ones that are highlighted are the ones that are kind of more specific to your subject group. All right, so I'm going to do a unit about melanin and protein synthesis and DNA and all kinds of stuff like that. So what I'm thinking is that I am going to choose my key concept as being change. Okay, because we're going to talk a little bit about evolution. We're going to talk about mutation in DNA. And so I think that that's really great that we're going to start with change. All right, so that seems to fit our unit the most. So I'm just going to change this to change. Okay. And then our related concepts, this can be 1 to 3. So depending upon the length of your unit, you can choose between 1 and 3. I like to choose usually 2 unless I'm doing a really long unit, and then I'll probably just choose 3. All right? So the related concepts, we have a lot more to choose from. Okay? So related concepts, we've got, let's see, 12 in biology, more in chemistry, more in physics, okay? More in integrated science. So these are really awesome that they kind of break it down by discipline. Some subjects do this kind of breakdown, some of them do not. But again, you're not kind of pigeonholed by only using these. You can use whichever ones you want. Okay, and what I like about this is that in the back of your subject guide, which I don't think this is where it belongs, which is why I made you guys these guides, is because I'd like to see the definitions of my related concepts all in one place too. Okay, so that I know I am making the right choice in my related concepts. Okay? So for my related concepts, I'm planning a pretty long unit. 6 weeks is pretty long. So I think I'm going to choose 3. Right? So based on my idea for my unit, I know that I want to talk about the environment, okay, all the biotic and abiotic factors, influence on survival, evolution, and development. Okay, I'm definitely going to be looking at survival, evolution, and development. So I am going to go here and put environment. It's going to be my first related concept. Let's see, what else do I want to choose here? One of our big ideas in biology is that form influences function. So whenever something happens to like DNA and things like that, then the function of that's going to change. So I'm going to also choose form and function. All right, perfect. So now I've picked my 1 key concept, and I've got a pretty long unit, so I'm going to do 3 related concepts. Now, what do I do for global context? Well, that's a great question. All right, so global context is essentially a way to pull something from the real world into these kind of big ideas that we're thinking about. So I'm thinking about change, I'm thinking about the environment, I'm thinking about form, I'm thinking about function. And so how can I bring international mindedness, bring global awareness to something that's really happening in the world in order to help my students get some kind of perspective. Okay, so there are 6 main categories of global contexts. So we've got identities and relationships, orientation in space and time, globalization and sustainability, scientific and technical innovation, personal and cultural expression, and fairness and development. Now, teaching science, I end up coming here a lot, but we want to try to think outside the box a little bit with these. And we also want to think about, what am I doing for my summative assessment? How can I use a global context to show kids the real world value of what we're going to be learning? Okay, so I've also made a global context guide here in Canvas. So if we get out, we've already picked our concepts, so we don't need this page anymore. And so now we're going to go to our global context guide. Right? So this is going to give us both the global context and the exploration. So in our unit planner, we want 1 global context and we want 1 specific exploration that is connected to our summative assessment. So in my summative assessment for my biology unit, kids are going to be looking at moths and the Industrial Revolution and how, more soot and things like that is quote unquote turning the moths a darker color because they're better at camouflage. So I want to be thinking about evolution. I want to be thinking about development. I want to think about industrialization. All that stuff's going to come into my global context. So, if I look here, then I want to think of a place to go. So usually I think about scientific and technical innovation. Industrialization is here, so that might be something that I choose because that's definitely going to be related to my global context. I could also think about globalization and sustainability, human impact on the environment. That's always a big one. But what I ended up choosing is orientation in space and time. And so this one has evolution, constraints, and adaptation, because I think that the evolution, constraints, and adaptation one really focuses on the whole unit way more than just the summative assessment. Okay, so in here I'm going to write orientation in space and time. Okay, and then for my exploration, I'm going to say evolution, constraints, and adaptation. All right, beautiful. And then because I'm extra, of course, I'm going to want to make it green. All right, so let's say that you are not really sure what to do for your global context. I have a couple of resources in here in Canvas to help you out. So this first one is a brainstorm, and I really love this one because, and I do this with kids also during their personal project. So here's all of the global context and explorations. And then in this last page, it really gives you an opportunity to look at each of the global contexts and see which one is going to fit your unit the best. So let's say I'm meeting with my content team and we're planning out this new unit. I'm going to give each person in my team one of these papers, and we're going to look and see if we can find a match between the example explorations and our unit that we're going to be doing. Okay, and this is really cool because it can really just shift your whole experience of the unit if you pick a global context. So let's look at a couple of different ones here. These bottom resources, these global contexts as a lens, I think this is super cool for some examples. So let's say that I'm doing pandemics and epidemics. Okay, if I want to choose my global context as identities and relationships, I can look at health, well-being, lifestyle choices, and this can be like a personal decision thing, and so the students will focus on how to stay healthy. Versus, I could pick orientation in space and time, epochs, eras, and turning points, and then we could compare and contrast the Black Plague to COVID-19. Okay, so this is still focusing on the same content. We're still looking at pandemics and epidemics, but the focus that we have is going to be a lot different. My exam that I give is going to be a lot different depending upon which global context I pick. Okay, so if you guys need a little inspiration, I've got the brainstorm here. You guys can do this as a content team. And I've got these lens focus documents as well that you guys can use to help you out in that. So, a couple of reflection questions with your content team. Okay, once you choose a global context, we want to ask ourselves these questions. Why are we engaged in this inquiry? Like, what final product, what summative assessment is going to tie our global context to our concepts? Why are these concepts important? Okay, this is another great question to think about even outside your own subject group. So if I'm going to pick my key concept to be change, okay, change is going to be a big deal in science, yes, but it's also going to be a big deal in PE. It's also going to be a big deal in the arts. Okay? Why is it important for me to understand? Why is it important for the kids to understand? Why do people care about this topic? And then could changing any of the concepts or global context provide more meaning or a different meaning? So just like we played with the global context a little bit, you could also play with your key concepts and related concepts. So let's say I teach it this way for a year, and then I go back to my unit planner and I'm like, this doesn't really fit. I can always change my mind. I can always take a different path, and it is not a huge deal. These are supposed to be working, living, breathing documents. So it's okay to change your mind over time. All right, that's all we've got for now. Stay tuned for the next part.